Armada Book 5 Chapter 4 The Recon Teams Part 1. Andrew walked into the mission room in his ship. Reek, Debbie, Arlene, Linda, Ellie, Lachine, Rebecca, Roger and Eric were there already. Riker and his men stood up sharply. Riker saluted Andrew. Andrew saluted back and nodded at Reek to welcome him back to the Armada. At ease. Riker, it's been 10 days since you got assigned to the various Armada groups. Have you anything to say? Andrew asked. Riker stood and walked in front of the room. General Man, Generals, as you all know, my team has been under training under the various commands. We now understand the new technologies and we have read Armada history and strategies. While we all admit that it is a shock to all of us and it still is, we have absorbed how the Armada does its job. Of course, considering we're all ghosts lightens the impact. We have organized into 4 teams of 6 men. One team is under me, another is under Captain Aldrin Simons, another is under Captain Delgado and the last is under Captain Sands. In a way we have become techies as well as intergalactic warriors. Each of us have gone through the Crinsons to download information relevant to our future missions and have become telepathic. We also have the latest field operative implants. Again an incredible feat. We are currently practicing with the Norsets on the operation of drones. So I figure you are enjoying yourselves? All the team members shouted a quick, yes sir. Sir, we have also integrated well with the other aliens and learned their ground operating techniques. We have gone to Planet Portland to attend the science seminars. Roger, Eric, Linda and Ellie, can you see it in my face how I miss the salute and snappy responses? Except you Debbie, you always salute me. GX1, Linda and Lachine seem to be looking at a fly going around in the ceiling, which is impossible in a ship like Olive. As you also notice Riker, nobody salutes me anymore. Especially the alien groups. None of their officers and more so the rank and file ever salutes me. The organization of the Armada does not make it salute-friendly. Yes, but for human Earth Armada, we should set an example to the other alien groups. In fact, Roden wanted Gantley to invent a formal salute similar to ours because it makes the Armada more cohesive and respectful of ranks. General Man. Roger said and saluted. Andrew returned the salute. I would like to go to the pending recon missions. But first, Ellie please. General Man sir. Ellie gave a crisp salute. Andrew returned the salute. He did not feel they were mocking him. He believed they were trying to make him happy. The Maccabees invented a working horizontal dimension gateway some 300 or so years ago. The equipment which they call dimension gateways or DGs allows us to tune into a parallel dimension, set the controls and walk into the white slightly cloudy portal it creates into another dimension similar or not so similar to our reality. We have tried to walk in and come back out. There is no feeling. It's like going through a door, no feeling, nothing. How many dimensions are there? And how do we decide which of the dimension to go into? Andrew asked. Sir, the DG tracks using a 16-digit code reference which when locked will set that DG permanently to that code or dimension unless it's changed. So if you imagine 16 nines, with commas every 3 nines, that is how much the machine can get into. But this does not mean that is all the dimension. It's just that the limit set on the machines was as such based on its effective range. Each team will go to one dimension, nosy around and come back. Make a report, discuss with the live GX teams and come back to that dimension if they so decide. Roger added. Ellie agreed and continued, yes, the Maccabees gave us 10 of these DGs and we installed them in the main cargo bays in 10 of my science ships in orbit near Planet Portland for security purposes. Each of these DGs are in what we call stations, you know, like train stations where people come and go. Nobody gets in or out unless they are beamed by the ship. Our multi-alien DG science teams of almost 20,000 strong are in these 10 ships just to understand this technology. Their first order was to understand the basic science behind the DG. The Maccabees refused to transfer the tech to the Crinson so the Crinson can transfer it to us. Except for the Mac scientists, they keep the tech close to their heart. But if we ask for more DGs they will give them to us. The Maccabees also gave 10 to the Norsets and the Inkeys has 10 as well. We are all doing joint explorations so we have people in their teams as well and they have their people in our teams. We are also doing coordinated deployment in such that we have agreed on 50 addresses that the 3 species will go to. Rebecca added. How would the teams return? Will they have their own DGs? Linda asked. Ellie took on the task of answering. Each of the team members is given a small DG handset. She showed the small 1.5-inch wide by 2.5-inch long and a 1/4-inch thick device with 2 buttons. When the teams go in they bring with them these hand devices with the settings automatically set by the DG when they go through. Now when they want to return, They just press this green button here, and if the original DG machine they went through is free and not being used to transfer other groups to other dimension, they can then connect and the same white mist appears in an optimal location near their location and then they can just walk through. The size of the mist opens first as a standard 3 feet wide. If they want to make the opening larger, they press the green button again and the opening increases. They can continue making it bigger until it is big enough to let a tank pass through. That device does not look too high-tech. Linda commented. What is it that prevents other dimension from getting into ours? Or into the Norset and Inky worlds for that matter? Andrew asked. The DGs have a dedicated multi-species teams including Trunties working round the clock to make it work. If something goes in, we would know. There are other security precautions like the design and structure of the DG rooms. Basically, it's a very large sealed room. Nothing goes in or out except by TP or DG. Scanners and digital laser trackers in the room make for very tight security. Ellie said. How about communications, Ellie? Eric asked. First of all, the Recon teams have the standard implants for our ground troops. The Norsets created a prototype of a ground communications relay good for 100 miles cloaked of course that the Recon teams can leave near the opening of the DG so that when the HQ opens the connection the communication link is opened and relay to the team wherever they are is established. The relay is the size of a very small pill, 2 millimeters long, and if they leave this within 100 miles of each other, they can establish a good length communications line to the troops in the field. We have equipment that can transmit to 500 mly but they are large and this small pill, you can just throw to the ground like a seed and go your merry way. I thought we had this new technology that the Norsets using some Maccabee nanotechnologies and which the Bofengs help create. Linda asked. Yes, they told me yesterday they will have a working model in a week or so then test them for a few weeks. After this we can deploy the technology to our people, if the Macs approve them. Ellie answered. What is it? Riker asked. These are tissues that they beam into 5 locations in our bodies that basically improves our existing implants expanding their functions like remote communications, scan, night vision, increased hearing and access to ship data systems. They will work almost the same as what our ground troops have implanted but these are tissues and not metallic nanobots. The Maccabees have working models of smart nanobots using the programmable metals but you know how the Macs are, they do not like metals inside our bodies unless it's for medical purposes and that they can later remove. Rebecca explained. That could come in handy. Riker said. With your training, Riker, these toys will affect your missions marginally. Andrew said. Thank you, sir. Riker said. There is also another equipment the Maccabees gave us and this is their portable recon vehicle our scientists call a Dingy. It carries 2 guys, has all the tech needed for spying, scanning and hacking, telecom and logistics support. It flies up to Mach 60 and has life support of up to 2 years. You guys should never leave home without it. They gave us 100 of these. The Norsets and Inkies have this much number also. Ellie said. Why Dingy? Andrew asked looking at Ellie. Ellie was hesitant but then, well sir, when the scientists first tested 10 dinghies, they floated the ships around and in 2 minutes the shiny vessels had hundreds of dings on their bodies because they bumped them all over the place. Good name, I suppose. Linda said. We need to train on our new toys. Riker said. The training will be conducted in Planet Portland after your work with the Norsets. You cannot take those babies home and they stay in the planet. Ellie's team will be your instructors. Roger said. Eric, did you finalize the creation of the teams for dimension exploration? Andrew asked. Yes, sir. First I would like to give credit to Reek and Debbie for the work they have been doing and providing us with our first line of recon people. I hope Riker and his men do not move on early on. Anyway, yes, we have created exploratory teams of 6, 20 teams, multi-alien with up to 4 aliens per team. Sometimes a scientist is assigned to each team moving them to 7 guys per team. Each team has 2 humans, 1 Norset, 1 Inky and 1 Mac. Sometimes another human or a Maccabee or a Talonot or Marinti is included in the team. 1 or 2 ghosts are assigned as part of the team driving up the number of personnel to 8 or 9. They will be lightly armed but fully armored. We have designed a lighter version of our GX uniforms to appear more friendly. Our dark body armor with headgear would still be the same. We also foresee the use of the chameleon devices would be fairly common. They will use the dinghies, cloaked and insert themselves so they will not cause too much trouble. Are we included in the teams? Andrew asked. No sir, all GX teams are not part of the program. Although missions for these teams may be arranged or even needed in some instances. The personnel for these teams are entirely new coming from our Armada personnel. The Council was briefed on their first contact procedures, which is pretty much evolving although it follows some basic rules. First contact is not a given, and if ever there would be first contact, we can expect they will all be as different as the faces in this armada. The press will come with the exploration teams only after they have established contact and have ensured their safety. Ships, can we bring some of our ships and equipment through these DGs? Lachine asked. Besides the dinghies, the largest we can bring would be AM-1A1 tank, a drone probe, and maybe knockdown sabers. We do intend to have our recon teams launch at least 3 drone probes in orbit so we can see the planet and establish communications and long-range scans. The Norsets are working on a launch pad for probes that we want to send further into space from the planet so we can map their universe. These probes will also scan the surrounding galaxies up to 400 MLY and send the information back to us. As you should be aware, exploration of these dimensions are not only at ground level but also the space around the planet may be up to 400 MLY. Later on we hope to connect these planets to come out with a universe map and see where they exist relative to the other planets in the same DG setting. Rebecca explained. I thought that the DG gives you access to unique universes. Why did you assume that our gateway can get into 2 or more points in the same universe? Andrew asked. Sir, we did assume that the DG provides a gateway to another universe and they could all be different. But we did not assume that they could not be in the same universe as well. Either way, it does not change our methods. Our operations will proceed as planned. Ellie said. The Norsets and Inkeys are all so excited about the DG technology. We expect millions will be involved in the work and would be moving in and out of planet Portland just to digest the tons of information from our probes and recon teams. Eric said. Did the Maccabees give us information on the universes they have visited? Linda asked. Ellie looked at Rebecca. Yes. They have visited just over 100 places before they shut the project down during the war for security reasons. They concerned themselves with hiding and securing the technology in case the enemy made an attempt to steal or get hold of it, including the scientists involved. Rebecca said, then she paused for a while. And? Linda follows through. Rebecca continued, there are no human planets, yes, mostly Maccabees, some Maccabee Macs, some other aliens they call Sarans which we believe are Marantais, well they look like Marantais. Most of their explorations were ground operations and they do not have the chameleon device, they did not launch orbital probes and scanners, and they were mostly look-see in and out work. Their analysis of these universes they went to are not at all extensive. There are thousands of pages written, but as you know this is really just scratching a handful of sand on the surface of a large beach. There is also one major issue that our scientists conjectured. Our universe is 14 BLY away from the Maccabees and it would be entirely possible to have the same address point to different universes because of the sheer distances from where it was calibrated. We could be looking at an entirely different set of universe which may be different from their original sets. Ellie said. That only means the universe just got bigger. Roger said. Our recon needs also got bigger. Debbie, how about more ghost recruits for the DG operations? Andrew asked. Well, we encountered a few military personnel and we offered them jobs. But as you already know, our objective is to make our ghosts move on and not give them jobs. There have, however, in the past 10 days, ghosts who are willing to work for a few months and not move on first if ever. But it is rare that a ghost will not move on once they see the light. It follows and draws them, and they cannot deny or avoid it in any way. Right now the number is over 780 ghosts employed and a third of this is ex-military. The ghost members of the exploratory teams come from this group. 12 people would be out of Roger's training in 3 days, but these are our recruiting team given a mission by the President to search and bring back home any military ghosts they encounter. And all of them have been working while on training. We have to conduct our own training program which is shorter and pretty much on the job. Right now Roger's training is a luxury we cannot have. Reek said. Debbie continued Reek's discussion. We have established 5 teams each at Lachine's and Gasamjan's planets and this we expect will exponentially increase our workload. But this will also expand our recruiting base for our DG operations. These teams are composed of 4 ghosts, 2 live humans and 2 Macs. Fortunately, we were able to find 3 people at Sonia's and 4 people at Sam's who can actually see ghosts and this makes work a lot easier. We have created their version of Phantom Tide so we expect the organization will grow by itself. One of the 3 ships that we posted in their planets, the one Sonia or Sam and their people uses, was designated for Phantom Tide use. The ghosts perform investigative as well as backroom research and analysis. The Macs are the natural sleuths and investigators. Again, their objective is to make the ghosts move on and not get stuck in the corporal world. Crime and other issues are secondary unless they contribute directly to the welfare of the ghosts. If you can find a more mixed armada of real and dead people, I would be happy to know. Andrew commented. Ellie thought, another comment for the movies. Linda nodded. Debbie continues, ghosts are peculiar in the sense that they gossip a lot. Once word goes out that there are people that can feed them, clothe them, give them an exciting job and help them move on, they are drawn like flies. That is why our organization has increased to more than 100 teams in the past 5 weeks. We have moved into a building across Anna's house, and this building was staffed with people that duplicated Anna's work with live human clients. There are 40 teams working 2 shifts in this building alone in 20 offices. We expect, and we told Sonia and Sam about this, and I guess they will be responding quickly sooner than they think. Another is that ghosts do not sleep, they do not get tired or get hungry, although they love to eat. Other than these, they are pretty much like us. It was a good thing we were able to get the building and set up the teams and procedures. In one day alone, Anna's house had more than 300 different clients, so we had to disperse the load. We started to be used by paranormal clubs and organizations to do their work. But the results were not encouraging. We had to create procedures that make it appear that the lead agent has extraordinary medium's powers when in fact a team is working in the background the clients do not see. It's a lot of fun, but our groups are increasing at a dizzying pace. And this pace we have started to look into seriously. Reek said and nodded at Roger. Our recon teams will start to go through the DGs in 4 days at the earliest if everything falls into place. A little later if something comes up. It's our first foray and we want to make sure our procedures are in place and the recon teams understand them. Roger said. The basic objective as far as our science groups are concerned would be to establish the time and space they are in. Then they look at the place and what is happening in the planet. To do this, the teams deploy 4 probes into space. One probe will take a snapshot of the universe around the planet covering up to 600 mly away. Another probe would be concerned with scanning the planet geology, the third probe will scan the planet's topside, and the last one will follow the DG teams in their groundwork. When the teams leave, the probes would still continue to work so that after several days, or when we want to later, an operator can go it and extract the data from these and bring the recording back. Ellie said. I would suggest that the recon teams read about all our alien friends so they would know who and where they are relative to our reality. Andrew said. I agree, and we will do as you suggest, sir. Riker said. Roger was impressed with Riker's quick answer. Roger knew Riker already have studied their alien friends. 4 days later at the DG station's number 10. Ellie walked in with Andrew, General Man. The 4 recon teams are Team Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. This is Riker's team, Team Alpha. They will go through this DG. Andrew looked at the ghosts. They were wearing camo, with body armor inside, holding technical equipment to launch the probes. 2 dinghies were afloat with 2 of Riker's men already inside each of them carrying the probes that would be launched in space. Riker and his assistant would ride a floating car and would cover the area at ground level. It was laden with equipment with 2 probe launchers for terrestrial and orbital launches clipped to each side. Riker, good luck. Andrew said. He shook his hand and shook the hand of his assistant. Riker went in after the 2 dinghies flew in. We are also sending off Teams Bravo after an hour at DG number 9, then after an hour after that Team Charlie deploys in DG number 8 and Delta will deploy in DG number 7 an hour after Charlie deploys. Ellie explained and Andrew nodded. A Norset nodded to Ellie and the DG opened the white mist which slowly became bigger, enough to let the team through. In less than 5 minutes, Riker and his team were gone. The mist disappeared and the connection was cut. We will open the portal again in 8 hours. Presumably by then the probes are in orbit and the Dingy shall have scanned the local ground area. Come on, let's go to the other ship so we can deploy Team Bravo. Ellie said. Team Alpha came back on time and in the debriefing room with Andrew, Ellie, Reek and Linda there to listen. Riker started. I believe the place we went to is what we know as Karaki. The Romits were dominating the planet. We established the date to be around the same time as our present date, which means that the Armada of this reality did not come to save them. We flew to the capital city, but we were not able to make contact with the rebel leaders, although we saw that the rebels were good in guerrilla fighting using carbon-based weapons. We flew to 3 cities while 2 of us walked around the main city and almost all areas were devastated. I think the war has been going on for a long time, maybe 30 or 40 years. We launched 4 drone probes, 2 into space, and I think we captured 4 hours of data from each of them in our recorders. The Norsets are transferring the data now and I think we got good views of the planet and the planet's surrounding space. Ellie said. It would be okay for our teams to go in cloak to investigate further and make contact with the human leadership. Then we can formulate an action plan either to help or not. Riker said. I think the leaders in our reality are in a small city 10 miles south of a larger city by the side of the mountain between 2 rivers. I remember Lachine telling me that the larger city's name was Traitant. Linda said. We flew over that city and we saw some people. It had the least fighting in the ground though. Riker said. Tom appeared. Ellie, Captain Simons will be coming back in 5 minutes. Come on, let's all go to DG number 9 to welcome the guys back. Andrew said. At DG number 9, the group was joined by Roger. On schedule, Captain Simons and his group of 6 were waiting for a few minutes for the gateway to open. As they got out of the DG, it was a mess. We were in a Norset planet taken over by the Morts. Captain Simons said. Were you able to launch the probes and gather data from them? Ellie asked. Yes, and we have a lot in our recorders. I have read about the Norsets and the Morts, and looking at the scene firsthand gives me the creeps. I could not imagine that an alien group can be this vicious. They were being slaughtered like cows. A Norset stood from one of the consoles and got their recorders. What planet and what date were you in? Riker asked. We have no idea of the planet and the date. I believe the Max and humans have not met the Norsets yet. Or it could be we were in a backup planet. I hope the probes could give these information to us. Let's hope we can get the intel from the recorders. Ellie said. This is absolutely fascinating. Roger commented. Okay, Riker, Simons, get cleaned up and take a rest. We'll continue with the meeting after the last team comes in. Andrew said. The two groups beamed out to their quarters. After several hours they met at Olive's mission room. Most of Andrew's commanders were there and some of Eric's DG team leaders. They already knew what happened and all were amazed at their initial DG trips. Tonin and Gantley made an effort to be there even if they are all on their vacation leaves. Sit down, please, everybody take a seat. First I want to congratulate the 4 teams for the very successful and fascinating sortie they went through. For a bunch of ghosts, this is an incredible feat, but then the team are all dead so they could not possibly be in danger. Andrew said and the guys laughed. Ellie stood. Okay guys, thank you General for the inspirational opening statements. Fine. So first, based on the scan data we were able to map the galaxies around them and their position in these galaxies. This led us to our second conclusion that the dates are almost the same, give or take several months, in some maybe years. This tells us that the DG sends our people across dimensions or realities but at roughly the same time frame. So if these horizontal lines are the dimensions we went to, this wide vertical line, showing a variance in time period, cutting across these dimensions is how our teams went through. She pointed to a floating image of the horizontal timelines and a wide vertical line across them. Ellie continued, third we found out that the address of the dimension has a bearing on the location across the galaxies, but we still have to verify if we can get to the same dimension using the same address but from a very different location in our dimension. We are working with the Norsets and Inkeys on this. Fourth, we have no direct proof that you all went to the same universe or dimension even if we sent you to different addresses. In other words, we don't know if the Norset and the Talonot planets where Team Charlie went to or the Inkey planet Team Delta went to were in the same universe even if they have different addresses. We have identified the Norset planet as Resin and it was one of the planets taken over by the Morts early in the war. The Talonot planet which we determined was called Saramnina was further out of the capital planet but next to the base where we met Manpat and there were evidence of war activities but was not taken over. These 2 planets alone show that the period the events happened as when they did in our dimension is entirely different. So what is common among all of them was the absence of the Armada. Like we did not exist? Andrew asked. Sir, if you think about it, the Armada was formed because of the confluence of several events starting with the Max, then Roden, the Hops and so on. Simon answered. So a break in these chain of events resulted in an altered chain of events where the Armada was not formed. Roger said. We don't even know if the Max actually went to Earth and started the process. Linda added. I looked at the videos and realized the technologies existing are almost the same. Riker said. First of all, this is absolutely fascinating to say the least. Congratulations to the teams. I think a team or teams should immediately go out and assess the situation better in order for us to determine a course of action if ever. But the team would have to be cloaked or if uncloaked must use the chameleon device to look like the natives. Tonin said. I agree. Eric, send out 5 teams of 7 per reality where our recon teams went through. Send out 2 dinghies per team. There would be no contact with the leaders, just determine what the complete situation is. Andrew said. I agree, we might be swamped by a lot of needs we cannot possibly handle. And this is only for the 4 dimensions. I understand the teams will go out to 4 different addresses tomorrow. So if we find out the same needs, how do we respond? Maybe we should really give this a thought. And may I also tell you and remind you that the Inkeys will start sending teams out in 2 weeks, so make sure you are available then. Gantley said. If I may, the Norsets will start sending teams in a month. I believe the use of Riker's team provides for easier deployment and less risk to our personnel. So if there are ghosts looking for a job, we are open. Tonen said. I think that the limiting factor in the DG devices is the size. If we can bring our ships in, then the issue would be easier to decide because we have the capability to act and act decisively. Lasheen said. Or we can create a ship with components that has the dimension of an M1A1 tank. These ships should pack the power of our ships or at least packed with enough technology to enable us to respond properly. Ellie said. Yes, that's a good idea, Ellie. Lasheen said, then looked at Andrew. Okay, start the project, Ellie, and work on it fast. Andrew said. Ellie looked at Rebecca. Rebecca stood and, Olive, please. A hologram of a ship components appeared beside her. Each of these components can pass through the DG. You see, these are long, but its height and width will go through the DG. If you can imagine this, the length is like 2 long buses and 2 buses wide. Wow, that was fast. Andrew exclaimed. The room laughed. So you intend to put Kligo blocks together at the other dimension? Andrew asked. Exactly, sir. Kligo block is an apt description, but we call it the IDT or interdimensional traveler. Each block has a number like the IDT 1 is the bridge and say IDT 27 is the crew quarters and IDT 10 would be the main engines. It has 12 long components and they will assemble like this. Rebecca said. The component holograms connected themselves to form a long and flat ship. It's not very large, but how functional is it? Tonen asked. We are still in the design stage and the functions that we would be packing depend on the intel from our missions. But we have pretty much decided on the basic requirements for all ships to have, and these are these 6 middle components here. They involve power, life support, shield and cloak, DGs, communications and TPs. Ellie said. So you start with, say, a basic design, and as you need more you just connect them? Andrew asked. Yes, you must have played with Kligo for a long time when you were young, sir. That is exactly what will happen. If we need personnel, for example an IDT 27 or a personnel component like this goes through and we connect it like this to say an IDT 1. Then an IDT 10 would connect to the back of the personnel component and now you have a small personnel transport like our dogs. Rebecca said. 3 components appear and assembled themselves into one ship in the hologram. Or if we need drone batteries, this drone component will connect like this also. I like the name Kligo better. IDT so-and-so number sounds like a too technical name only scientists can come out with. Andrew said. Did I hear you mention DG? Linda asked. Yes, we would like to determine if a DG in the other dimension can identify our dimension and open a gateway back or open another dimension from that dimension and how the address relates to our addresses. Ellie said. I think the dimensions will reach infinity. Andrew commented. That's the theory, sir. Rebecca said. I mean, a person can go to a dimension with a DG, open another dimension there to a different address, move into that dimension and open another one into another address and so on and on. Andrew explained. He could get lost and never come back. He simply can get lost in the network. Linda said. Rebecca continued, that person can go through thousands and we would never know that even if he uses the same address to go through would mean the same address from a different dimension if he came from several dimensions already. Yes, he could get lost and not come back. We cannot possibly involve ourselves with all these dimensions. Eric said. You'd be surprised. A lot of our Armada people do want to get lost in multi-dimension travel. Rebecca said. In my opinion, we should not get involved until we are capable enough. Our objectives must be very clear. Ellie said. It could be hard to see your planet getting destroyed even if you know it's in another dimension. Lasheen added. It's going to be a long learning process. But I believe we should take action in some very few instances. Maybe we could learn something. Like if the Kligo actually works. We should also need to understand how we should operate on the ground with just a Kligo ship in space. We have to determine with some degree of confidence the appropriate response to the different situations. Andrew said. I agree with Andrew's point of view. Gantley said. The key word is appropriate response. Take the case of the Talonauts. I am sure they have been at war for 100 years already, assuming the time may deviate a little, and they have a squid problem and they do not know how to reverse the process. But we do. And this small information may change the course of the war for them. Tonen explained. I believe that we should remove our mindset on how we do things. For example, we are used to dealing with thousands of ships in a very short time, say in our tagging operations. Maybe we can have a few thousand taggers and they may work longer, but in the end, the war will be won. Or teach them how to do it. Eric said. Information is our best weapon plus the hindsight. Roger said. I think that we should not preempt things. Let our people go out and see what's out there. It may be too early to even think of reacting. It could happen that one of the dimensions would be better for us to react to a certain event than the another reality. We have to develop the deciding criteria that would determine whether we go or not. Let's wait for the Norset and Inky side of DGs. Maybe there are intersections and commonalities. So let's meet after a month on this, and maybe Ellie and Eric shall have more information for us to work with. Let Riker and his group recon a lot more and have the DG teams go and do a second run. Gather more data and information. Andrew said. Very good, General. Ellie said. Very well, boss. Roger added. Ellie coordinated with the Norsets and Inkys on the DG destinations. Ellie, Ripan, Gotanen, Bakanima and Kantanel have agreed to a plan to go to the same first 50 DG addresses or destinations. They wanted to make sure that the same address for the 4 DG locations would be the same realities. Unfortunately, the same address for the 4 groups holding the DGs opens up to different locations in the same realities. In 2 addresses they were not even in the same universe at all. Ellie and her counterpart teams found out the relationship of vast distances and the differences of realities in the same addresses. A few days later at Eric's bridge, Lasheen appeared. Hi Eric, this is Ribani, you remember him, don't you? Yes, you were the priest that turned into a fighter, then to a politician, then to an Armada commander under Roger. I guess that's my whole life. Ribani said. Linda, Juni, manpat en serudom beams in. Then Ellie and Ramastan beams in. Eric, this is Brasun, he used to be head of the Imperial Guards when I was a king, now he is a ship commander under Serudum. Juni said. Come on guys, have a seat. Eric said. Can we just talk at the mess hall? Serudum asked. Eric looked at him and said, okay. They were all beamed to the mess hall, which is now almost empty with only 2 tables occupied. They sat themselves at the captain's long table. Eric found it practical to designate one long table, but nobody seemed to follow the designation, especially at the start of a major operation. General Mann asked me to form the human group that will infiltrate Earth and look for the Armada personalities. Our mission is to try to accomplish the task at hand, which is to create the Armada where there is none and learn from our experience. The experience will be an eye-opener for our future explorations and insertions into the various worlds. I asked for names and Juni recommended you Brasun, Lasheen recommended you Ribani and Ellie recommended Ramastan here. Sam recommended Padamo, who was her army chief and who is now an Armada ship captain, to take over the Kligo ship assigned to the operations. Eric said. I agreed to the assignment and have designated 300 of my men to help out. Ribani said. I am excited to do this. Ramastan said. You're always excited. Ellie said. I have 600 people who are all special forces, divided in teams of 6, coming along for the ride. They will serve as uncloaked support teams. Brasun said. The way I look at it is that we are pressed for time. We do not have the luxury of going down and talk to the target personnel. Linda said. That is why I made a very short list, but still comes out to 880 people. These are all GX members but limited them to the first 20 groups. Non-GX members like Linda, Reek, the foreign commanders like Ono and his assistants, Hoffman and his people, Jenny, Hyru, we, Kirk and his people, several MCOM people, and so on. We also found out Riker and his men were not killed, so we will get all of them. Eric said. I think we should just do a short verification of these persons, then beam them into the ship, then to a planet, then process them there. Lasheen said. Exactly my thoughts. We will let our field operatives under Brasun, Ramastan and Ribani verify our targets, talk to them and verify the MAC intel on them. Remember we sent the MACs and Inkeys 2 weeks ago, so all our targets have been tagged. I believe we should use the planet Los Angeles on the other side. The Kligo ship verified this planet and saw a few thousand MACs in 2 villages on the planet. Eric said. Would it be easier to just put the targets through the Crimson so they would be convinced faster? Ellie asked. Ellie is pointing to a very important point. Do we assume they will all go along for the ride? I don't think so. Remember, these are the top military minds of the planet. Linda said. That would be the job of the uncloaked field operatives. Ribani will be the overall field operations commander and you will be assisted by Ramastan and Brasun. Ezra and Madanite will play the wise aliens. You guys deploy, assess the lay of the land and try to convince the targets or come out with ways to convince the commanders. They will not buy the wise alien bit completely but will doubt everything. You have 2 months to do this. Eric said. That long? Ribani asked. They all laughed. So you want more time then? Ellie asked. Yes, we have to convince their President and Secretary of Defense to help us. Then these people can just order their men to follow us. As for the foreign targets, I guess we can just beam them in one shot. Ribani explained. Pay them with diamonds and technology. Junie commented. Exactly. Lachine said. The fusion technology will serve this purpose. The diamonds we have to mine from the Slander planet. I need to adopt a targeting TP to 1 Kligo block. Ellie said. It would be easier to just beam the diamonds in from our dimension. Remember, the diamonds must be in smaller blocks already for the leaders of the other side to use. Linda said. How about gold? Gold is more acceptable than diamonds. I can have 30 million tons shipped through the hops for you guys to use. Manpat said. Where did you get all that gold? From the pirates? Lachine asked. A mind read on the pirates showed a planet, actually 4 planets, with a lot of gold. Manpat said. Gold would work. When do we get them, Manpat? Eric asked. In 2 weeks. I was intending to use the gold to pay Gilkin for the TPs, but he refused to get the gold, so it was just sitting there near the Mac capital. So Ribani, get your people ready to go on the training program under Roger and Ellie on what to expect in the DG operations for a few days. Then let's meet again before you deploy. Your IDs have been created and all the intel will be on your personal tablets. You have 2 days to study them. I know you have all gone through the Crimson, but all you guys will have to go to the Crimson again to get the local information, including the local languages. Kristen will also put the visual and hearing implants our Marines have on all of you and your people. Eric said.